Look, I wanted to be a great storyteller, so I did the one thing that any logical person would do. I studied the best books on storytelling. I learned about rising action, about character arcs, about the best way to structure your story. But then, I tried sharing a story in front of my friends. To be honest, it sucked. Like, after a few seconds, everyone stopped listening. And that's when I realized that actually a lot of the storytelling advice that is out there, it's helpful for books and movies. But if you just want to share a short story in front of friends, coworkers, or even on video, it's pretty useless. But the good news is, storytelling is actually pretty easy as long as you avoid the 5 mistakes that I'm about to share. First mistake, starting too slow. Now, just 2 weeks ago, I was giving this storytelling workshop here in Amsterdam when one of the participants started his story like this. He said, well, it was this sunny summer afternoon. I was walking through the street, feeling optimistic. I was wearing a suit, just coming back from work. Now, that went on for another 2 to 3 minutes. Now, way too many people give way too much context. They talk about their company history, their activity, all their responsibilities. Now, that's not needed. The fix is to start your story as close to the challenge, the most important part of the story, as possible. So just use 2 to 3 sentences to give context. In that context, you can talk about the where and when does it take place, who's the main character, and what does the character do. That's it, like 2 to 3 sentences. For example, October 2021, I was in my apartment in Amsterdam staring at my laptop. Just a minute ago, I'd received a message by my manager. Boom. Now we're like into the scene. We know that something is about to happen. So start your story as close to the challenge as possible and bring in forward momentum through some actions. Mistake number 2, not making the audience care. Look, I'm a huge fan of cutting down unnecessary details, but sometimes we strip away a little bit too much. You still need to share something about the character that makes your listener care. Like, share something that keeps them invested. How you can do that? Usually share what is on the line. What can your character gain or lose in that specific situation? So you want to share, what are their goals? What do they want to achieve? What happens if they succeed? What happens if they fail? Let me give you an example. Instead of just sharing, I have to give this presentation, share, I had to give this presentation, and if I crush this, well, I might get promoted for this. But I guess also, if I screw that up, well, everyone will think that I'm stupid. I might be stuck in this one stupid project forever. Do you see? Now we're talking, right? Now you care about the rest of the story, how it's going to evolve. But keep in mind, your stakes don't have to be those huge life-changing stakes. It can be small stakes, like you wanting to be respected in front of your friends, you avoiding this moment of embarrassment, or you getting some recognition at work. Any of those small but relatable stakes make it even more compelling. The key is share what is on the line. What can the character gain or lose in that specific situation? Mistake number 3, staying too high level. Now, imagine you're watching this nature documentary and it starts with this beautiful helicopter shot all the way from above. You see like the oceans, the forest, the horizon. And you're like, hey, this is beautiful. But after a few seconds, you're like, dude, take me down there, right? I want to be part of the action. I want to see that lion approaching this prey. You want to be part of the action. Now, how does that relate to storytelling? Most stories are so freaking boring because most people stay at this high level, at this helicopter shot. They say something like, oh, well, I had this very difficult problem and yeah, I solved this problem. That is super boring. The best stories don't stay at this helicopter shot. They zoom into the moment. They zoom into this vivid moment of the story. For example, instead of saying, I had a challenge at work, say, in this moment, I walked into the room and I see my manager pacing back and forth, head completely red. Now we're talking, right? Now you're there with me in that moment. Now, in case you're wondering, like, how can I actually zoom into the moment? It is actually pretty easy. The easiest way to do that is to just relive the moment of that story. So you can close your eyes and just replay that scene. Picture that scene as it was happening back then. So you can ask yourself, hey, where am I? What am I doing? What am I feeling? What am I thinking? What am I hearing? zoom into the moment and then just describe what is unfolding in front of your eyes. Mistake number 4, using a storytelling voice. Now that one is one that I still struggle with today. Oftentimes it happens that I speak normal, and the moment I go into my story, I then suddenly change the way I speak. I suddenly more sound like this motivational speaker or this fairy tale uncle. I'm like, it was a dark, stormy afternoon when I was walking across the street and I see this unexpected thing. No, I don't think it's going to be that bad with you, but just keep in mind, when you share your story, you want to speak in the same way as you're chatting with your friend. So anytime you share a story, try to share it as conversational as possible. So imagine yourself in a coffee shop with your friend. How would you speak? You probably wouldn't over-enunciate every single word. You probably wouldn't use too sophisticated, too complicated language either. And you probably wouldn't care about any filler words or your body language. You would just speak as casual as possible. If you tell your story like that in a natural way, you can connect the best with your audience. Mistake number 5, preaching. I've seen it countless of times. People are telling an incredible story, but then they mess up the final sentence. They say something like, and the morale of the story is that you shall always be prepared for the unexpected. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That's it. Like, they somehow think that they have to become this preacher at the end that tells people how to live their life, to become this big guru. But how does it feel, right? We as an audience, we don't like when someone tells us how to live our lives. We want to deduct this ourselves. So the fix is, let your story do the work. Tell a story that is so clear that at the end the people understand the takeaway without you having to state it explicitly. If your takeaway is clear, they'll understand it. And if it's not clear, well then go back to the story and twist the story so that it becomes obvious. I guess there's one exception, and that is business storytelling. In business storytelling, you sometimes want to state it a little bit more explicitly. But even in those moments, instead of saying the moral of the story, which again would sound very preacherish, say something like, what I learned from that experience is X, Y, and Z. That's it. It sounds much more natural, much more inviting, and just less preacherish. Storytelling is such a powerful tool. If you just focus on avoiding those mistakes that we talked about today, you will already tell better stories than 99% of the people. But hey, I guess in case you want to go a little bit deeper and learn some of the more advanced techniques, you may want to check out this next video, in which I share some of my favorite storytelling techniques. Enjoy.